All right, y'all. For the do now, talking about World War II. So we're just asking, how did the United States navigate World War II? Did we want to get involved in the war? Did we want to stay out of it? Why did we get involved when we eventually jumped into the war? And then how did citizens feel about the war? Did they want to get involved? They want to stay away? So just take a couple minutes. I'll come around, check in with you, and once you we'll move on. I'm a man.
Name Mr. Hill.
That's my bad, y'all.
You.
Take your headphones off. Can I give you one?
World War II, was it the bomb on
Pearl
Yeah, just write it down.
Pearl
Explain
Harbor?
what happened, who did it, why they did it.
Mr. Hill. Because like the U.S. was originally trying to stay out of World War II, right? And then Japan just.
And then after that, you know, what has to happen after that? Yeah, what has to happen after that? You can't just let somebody do that and let them slide.
You can't. You gotta see that one too.
Yeah, you gotta get your ones after that.
Dropped a whole new. Remember, we didn't want something to spray.
Oh, that's it.
So it was the bomb on Pearl Harbor and the spread of the
Yeah.
Why is this uncomfortable?
Let's go ahead and get started. So, what was the U.S. trying to do? Did they want to get involved in the war?
I thought the U.S. did.
No, they did.
But
They got the whole reward.
That's why
That's part of it.
That's why I said I thought the citizens was like, we don't want the war because they just got a world war, but the government was like,
That's not.
communism was spreading, so we gotta do something.
That was non.
So yeah, that was part of it. That's definitely part of it. So going back to World War One, we had just got done with the Great Depression. World War One got us out of the Great Depression. Do we know why? Think about manufacturing. So yeah, that's part of it. But think about how they making money off that. How is the war helping the country out?
Because like producing like guns and things of that sort.
Exactly. So we're producing guns, ammo, tanks, just anything that's war related. We're producing. So we're selling it to allies and enemies. We're selling it to everybody because we just want money. So that helped us get out of the Great Depression. So our economy actually wasn't at a bad state at this point in time. So people are like, let's stay out of the war. We just got out of the war. We don't want to send more people off to die. Like they don't want to get involved. But then what happened? Who attacked Pearl Harbor? Japan, right? Bombed Pearl Harbor. And that left us no choice but to get involved because you can't let somebody attack you on your home soil and then just let it slide, right? You gotta do something with that. So we got involved after that.
Why did they do it?
So
What's on purpose?
it was on purpose. There's a lot of different things, but from my understanding, we were a big threat because they knew if we jumped into the war, we would basically like tilt the war towards the Allies. So they wanted to attack us Pearl Harbor, because you know Japan is like the closest to Hawaii. So that's why they chose Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. So they're like, if we attack that base right here, it's gonna kind of cripple their ability to send troops out there, which it did. It just made us angry. But essentially it's not what happened.
Wasn't D-Day a part of it too? D-Day, I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, so D-Day, that is the day when we stormed Normandy Beach. So that's when we stormed Normandy Beach, heavy resistance. I think that was the day where they said like the most people died.
They said it was violent.
Yeah. I definitely recommend Call of Duty World War II. That's probably my favorite Call of Duty. Oh, was it? The story mode was
No,
good.
the story mode was good, but like the
Online.
multiplayer was terrible.
Yeah, but story mode was crazy. Okay, so now how did citizens feel about the war?
They were
They
tired,
didn't
bro.
They got out of World War One.
So they kind of like echoing everything the government's saying, like, we just got out of World War I, just got out of the Great Depression, we're doing good, let's focus on the country. Then of course, Pearl Harbor happens, and now how the citizens feel.
Like, bro, come on, man. Like, leave us alone.
Yeah, no, they're like, we can't do that. So, just another side note, Japan attacked us. How did they feel about Japanese American citizens after that?
Very
They didn't like it.
Hey, Mr.
They set up an act to get rid of them. Like,
It was called.
It wasn't an act to get rid of them.
It was the act of like how the Japanese got attacked, so everybody
Yeah, that shit was, I'm sorry.
I seen it on the test.
So we
it was
sent
like
them to
Japanese
internment camps, right?
Yeah.
So we just sent all the Japanese citizens, pulled them from the house and basically rounded them up, sent them to internment camps where they had to live until the war was basically over.
So we kind of went to like Hitler mode.
Exactly.
Nice,
Exactly.
but nice Hitler.
A nice version. We just like murder.
We weren't killing them, but we put them in candles.
Right, it really not that much better. Like
And
dragging out innocent people out of the house,
Yeah,
putting them in
certain-
camps, like it's awful. So, yeah, I just want to get everybody brain flowing on World War II because obviously what I'm talking about. So let's move on.
Mr. When did the bomb, when did the nuke drop? Like, wasn't it April 6th or something?
What drop?
The nuke,
Oh, I don't know the exact dates, but I know they dropped them like back to back, like within a couple of days. They dropped one nuke on Hiroshima and then another one on Nagasaki a couple of days later.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, it was overkill.
I watched the video.
Go ahead.
I watched the video about why they didn't do Tokyo. But they didn't do,
Why didn't they?
because they wanted to target like, because Tokyo was like the city part of the area, but you know Japan was really big on farming and whatnot. Those two areas were really big on farming, so they said we finna drop it.
I mean, that's better because you wiped out. We wiped out the city. How many innocent people you would killed? Like you already killed a bunch of innocent people, but you dropped it on like, come on, that's crazy. That's like somebody dropping a bomb on New York. Like,
That would be, hey, you know what? Would be too bad, honestly.
All right, moving on. Oh, just to go over this really quick, I do have to kind of change the way that I grade things because it's not fair for you all to have some grades on like assignments that you don't get like the best lesson on, especially with all the testing we're doing. So from now on, you get 4 points every week for participation grade. You show up every day, read whenever I call you, not on your phone 24/7, you actually filling out the worksheet, you'll get all 4 points. And if I see you 5 days a week, then it'll be 5. But if you're absent and it's unexcused, you gotta take the point away. You don't get a point for that. So Christian, start showing up. Got me 60 days.
Every other day, bro.
But I always.
You have 2 points.
And then the other assignment will be just, I may just take an exit ticket if we have one and do that. Today is our last lesson. Like, today is our last, like, actual lesson I'm going over. After this is going to be review. No, this is review, but after this, next week, we start working on our final project. Next 2 weeks, we work on our final
We gotta
project.
project, so we gotta like present.
PowerPoint.
We gotta
Like,
You know exactly
is
what I
like a
mean.
group or like in the
By
room?
yourself.
Is this for AP?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
AP presentation.
Yeah. So, I'm not turning it into like anybody like above me or anything. It's just for us.
Listen, why can't we present as a group? Like choose a group.
What's the topic?
I'm going to give everybody a topic, or you can come up with your own topic, but it's going to be something historically related. So I may say World War I, World War II. I may just give this whole entire class award. All right. Tell me,
Give me a
everybody in
American.
the
Give a breakdown.
Basically, American War, War of 1812, Revolutionary War. I think give everybody.
Yeah, let me get the American Revolution on that.
And you just got to break down what happened.
You give me the Boston Massacre.
Boston Massacre. Babe, nah, that's too like. That's
Boston
too
Tea
easy.
Party.
Tea Party.
Too easy.
Right.
That's all American Revolution. That's all like the Revolutionary War. French and Indian War. So yeah, I may just do that with this class. Like everybody gets to where they have to go over. And you'll spend 2 weeks. Like the first week, like we'll be gathering the information on the project, getting everything ready, and then the next week, every day you'll just be in class working on a PowerPoint, putting it together, and I'll be working with everybody. So then that next week after that, that's final week. So I only see you once that week, I believe. So. I don't know, it's weird, like the way they got it set up. I don't know how many times I see you honestly, but I'm assuming I'm only gonna see you once because that's how like how final week work. And then I come back a week after that. I don't know what we're gonna do that week. We may just watch movies.
Don't we
Yeah,
only
I
got-
don't know.
Oh, well, fine. I thought you were talking about the 8. I was gonna say. I thought you was talking about
School really almost over though.
Yeah,
No, I got like
we got 2
what?
weeks of just working on my project.
We got it made.
Finals week, and then a week after that where we don't have anything planned. So I don't even know what they want me to do yet.
Wait, we got in June or this month?
We got the first.
This is
the
first
first?
month.
Yeah.
One.
3 weeks, but I don't know.
So we're not testing the lesson for school, right?
You're not testing in my class. I don't know what
In some other
You may have finals in other classes, but here you go. Once you get around project, nah. So,
But I already got a 2-page, essay for just the Foster final. A 2-page essay is crazy.
Alright, y'all. Alright, let's jump back in. So, for our objectives, today you'll be able to explain the impact of World War II on American politics and society from 1945 to 65, and you'll be able to use evidence in order to make and support a historically defensible claim. Alright, moving on to our historical situation. So, same exact thing we always do, we read these off. We're just gonna go up, down, everybody just take turns reading. So, starting off with Jordan. So, go ahead, read that first one, please. It's in your package as well if you wanna look at the package.
I can see it. It's okay. American debated policies and methods designed to expose suspected communists within the United States, even as both parties supported the broader strategy of containing communists.
Thank you very much. So, we're starting to notice communism. That is what this first bullet point is talking about. We're starting to notice communism, and we're suspecting it of being infiltrated into our country. So, like we have communist spies in the country. Joe, can you explain?
Mass culture became increasingly
Homogenous.
homogeneous in post-war years, inspiring challenges to comforting by artists, what's this?
Intellectuals.
Intellectuals and religious youth.
Values. Thank you very much. So, does anybody know what homogenous means?
Isn't it just one?
There you go. It's like one. It's like we have like a mix of different things, and it ends up being one. Like that's why they call America like a melting pot, because we have so many different ethnicities and races and there's different cultures, and you bring it all and we just one.
Wait, I thought it was homogeneous.
Homogenous.
No, it's
Yeah, it's homogenous. But that's what this is talking about. Like, we're so tired of conformity. Like, we want to do our own thing. We want everything to be different. All right. Moving on. Who's next? Alec.
seeking to fulfill Reconstruction era promises, civil rights activists and political leaders achieved some legal and political successes in ending segregation, although progress toward racial equality was slow.
So we know with Reconstruction era, there were a lot of promises that were never fulfilled. So the civil rights movement was basically our way of going back and trying to make right on those promises. So they moved slow. It didn't happen overnight, but eventually they made a lot of change. BJ, your turn.
The three branches of the federal government used measures including desegregation of the armed services and Brown versus Board of Education, which was in 1994, to promote greater racial equality.
All right, 2 questions. Do we know what the Brown versus Board of Education was?
I've heard of it.
No,
This is so important, see y'all.
That's the most popular case.
Wasn't that like, isn't it like to like get rid of like segregation in schools?
There we go. You're on point, Derek. But yes, that's exactly what it was. So it got rid of that separate but equal, because when you're separate, it's not really equal. Minorities didn't have the same access to like opportunities and things. So eventually, Brown versus Board of Education happened, got rid of that. And 1 second, this is a good point for my Cowboys fans. This happened in 1954 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Guess who was out there protesting?
Jerry
My Cowboys fan.
He was just in the crowd. He was,
Nah, he gonna
he
do
was
that.
just trying to see what was going on.
I missed it. What was the name of that little black girl that had see? Every year that went to that all white school. What's the name of it?
Wait, protesting
I don't
for?
know.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Wait, against?
Oh, never mind.
That was Jerry Jones.
Nah, sick. Okay, and other question. This is gonna be something you go over next year, Mr. Referent, but do we know the 3 branches of the government?
Legislative and
executive.
There you go. Nobody in my second period.
What is that? What is
Are you serious?
Nobody in my second period.
Bro, like we learned that in like middle school, bro.
Imagine not doing that.
Oh, and then executive. An executive.
All right, y'all, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back.
Executive, that's the
president.
president, yeah.
Let's bring it back. All right. Moving on. Christian.
During and after World War II, civil rights activists and leaders, most notably Martin Luther King Jr., combated racial discrimination utilizing a variety of strategies, including legal challenges, direct action, and nonviolent protest tactics.
So you already know our civil rights leaders, they did a ton of different things to kind of combat racism and inequality. So obviously like sit-ins, marches, just any type of protest, right? We try to keep it peaceful for the most part. Moving on, Derek, you ready to read?
Continuing resistance slow efforts at desegregation, sparking social and political unrest across the nation. Debates among civil rights activists over the efficacy of nonviolence increased after 1965.
All right, so 1965, during this time period, a lot of African Americans started to say, hey, we've been getting hit with the water hose too long. We're gonna start to see change. They keep letting dogs on us. I'm tired of getting bit. Tired of going to jail, sitting in these restaurants. Like, when we gonna start to see change? So you start to have people second guessing if nonviolence is actually really working or not. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Cassandra, can you read the next point? Latino American Indian. It's in your package.
Latino American Indian and Asian American movements continue to demand social and economic equality and a redress of past injustice.
So obviously African Americans are not the only ones fighting for their rights at this time period. Latinos, American Indians, Asian Americans, they all have their own kind of separate movement going on, right?
Hey, Mr. Did you know that the white man didn't come up with the term racism? Or not really racism, but like the difference between like the superiority of white people and
I'm
black
very
people.
good.
It was a German man. It was a German scientist.
bet they didn't. Okay. Back to you, Jordan, feminist and gay.
Feminist and gay and lesbian activists mobilized behind claims for legal, economic, and social equality.
So, just like I said, African Americans weren't the other ones. Neither were Latino, American Indians, and Asian Americans. Also, feminists had their movement going on, as well as the gay rights movement. So we had like a bunch of different things going on, like the 50s, 60s, early 70s. Like it was like really a time for change. Alright, moving on. Jayla, can you read point feminist
Feminism practice in the
counterculture?
culture of the 1960s rejected many of social, economic, political values of their parents' generation and advocated changes in sexual norms.
So, with the feminist movement, females were looked at kind of like how they always been looked at in society. Like they had to carry this up a certain way, had to be very ladylike, keep everything covered up, be very like reserved. During the 60s, they kind of started to change. They just started to show like more skin. Women went out and they're like, I'm not gonna wear a bra anymore. You can't tell me how I should act as a woman. So this is definitely empowering for them. Moving on, next person, Alvin.
Although anti-communist foreign policy faced little domestic opposition in previous years, the Vietnam War inspired sizable and passionate anti-war protests that became more numerous as the war escalated and sometimes led to violence.
All right, so now we start to see that anti-communist movement come back into the play, and obviously in America, communism was a no-no. So you had a lot of people who were protesting communism, and you had a lot of people who were protesting the war. They're like, we're anti-war. You have another side who were like, well, we're anti-communism. So they start to clash, and sometimes it would lead to violence. All right, BJ, can you read the next point?
Which one was it again?
Yeah.
Some groups on the left also rejected liberal policies, arguing that political leaders did too little to transform the racial and economic status quo at home and pursued immoral policies abroad.
This is an important one. So this is talking about the liberal policies or the government policies during this time period. They felt as if they weren't doing enough to help out with racial inequalities and things of that nature at home, but they were worried about doing illegitimate, immoral things overseas. Like that's more important than kind of getting at home together. So they kind of felt like that wasn't fair to them. And our last point, Christian, you gotta read the last one.
Young people who participated in the counterculture of the 1960s rejected many of the social, economic, and political values of their parent generation, introduced greater informality into U.S. culture, and advocated changes in sexual norms.
So counterculture, this is just like another word for people rejecting like the norms. So during this time, it's like we're alive, we're free, we're young. What movement happened in the 60s and 70s that really kind of emphasized this, like freedom, happiness, peace? There we go. So that kind of describes that movement in other words, like, oh, we're free, we're young, we want to have peace, we're happy, no war, say no to the war, right?
Bro, let me tell you, you know about grandma was a hippie dog?
I believe it because I ain't sure my people's work too. I'm a hippie now. All right. Moving on to our creative narrative. Now that we kind of went over a lot of what was going on, I know we didn't get into great detail, but time constraints, we won't be able to do that. So I want you to choose any event, anything that happened from 1940 to 1970. So really, the beginning of World War II, all the way up through the end of the Vietnam War, basically. So you can talk about the Cold War, talk about World War II, talk about the Civil Rights Movement, Mexican American rights. You can talk about the baby boomers. So many different things you can talk about. Vietnam War, we're gonna talk about that. Korean War. So choose one topic and just kind of talk about it. Describe what was going on, why it was important, what it led to, how it changed the U.S. And I'm just gonna call on two people so we can go over really quick. So I'll give you about 7 minutes to go ahead, give me this summary of the event, and we will go over two of them. So So let's get started. I'll be walking around checking in with everybody. Anything between like 1940 to 1970. Mr. Gully, he was so kind of so I like a bunch of different things up here that you could put down. Well, this one was up for the exit ticket. So. But it says something that you can use. Where? Oh yeah, so the civil rights. So civil rights movement, women had their own right, the women's rights movement. So essentially, like, they don't understand, like, they understand what the old X, Y, Z, these are the words, is how the women's rights change. So, right about that. Look up anything that you don't know. Call me or look it up.
I can't see this. The baby boomer era. Wasn't that when like social steam home and like the populations went up like crazy?
Exactly that. Write that down. What did the increase in population mean to talk about urbanization? All right, I'm about to come around and just kind of check in and see what everybody's writing about.
So,
What's your topic? Yes, I got it.
I'm almost done. You can read it in a second.
Yeah, no, I looked at it. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over two of them real quick so we can get onto the exit ticket. Right. So, I'm gonna call on BJ. You talked about the baby boomers, right? So this is important because this is definitely gonna be in the AP exam on Friday. So, what'd you say about the baby boomers?
I would tell the era of the baby boomers after World War II, right? In World War II, II, there was a major increase in population, and the once to start a family, there was a need for more housing. Also, the population increase resulted into more suburban neighborhoods. Also, soldiers were looking into getting an education, and women wanted to sort of step out of the role, and they did not want to go back into that housekeeping mindset.
Exactly. Now you summed it up perfectly. Summed it up better than I would have. But exactly, after World War II, so from 1946 to 1964, we had an increase in population. 200 billion children were born.
Million?
It was crazy. Like, it's just crazy amount of people born. But I mean, come on forward. You want to move on from that, start a family. But I do want to bring up one thing. There was a bill that was passed to help our veterans. Help them out with what is that acronym?
Can you give us the first letter?
That's half of it.
It's like G.
G.I. Joe?
There we go.
GI Bill.
The GI Bill, yes. So that was passed to help our veterans come back home.
The GI.
That was help with that helped our veterans. So it gave them money to go to school, and it helped them find access to housing easier.
What would happen if there was another baby boom?
So didn't they get like 64 more years?
Say it one more time.
Didn't they get them like 60 bucks?
Yeah, they gave them like a certain like X amount. I forgot how much it was. When we calculated how much it was in today's money, it was a decent amount. What were you saying?
I'm disrespecting now, huh?
Can I go
He said.
Yeah, go ahead. I had to say 1 second because he's in the middle of talking.
I don't care about that. I don't care what you guys are saying.
All right, now.
But what would happen?
What do you guys say?
What would happen if there was another baby boom?
If we had another one,
Yeah.
the same exact thing that happened in the past, like we had to
build more houses.
build more houses.
Any forest, bye to oxygen.
Yeah, that too. Like it would be crazy. I don't know exactly how it be because it's so different.
I don't think that would happen, especially with inflation.
Yeah, I don't think it would happen. But never know. It could be another war and then people come home.
Another war.
Want to move on.
Lord.
Okay. So for one of my ladies who went over the women's race, can we just give a quick rundown of that?
Who?
Just quick summary.
Jada.
What were they trying to accomplish? What were women trying to accomplish?
They was trying to accomplish equal rights, like custody of children, their own bodies, and marriage.
Exactly. So things of that nature, and then also like not being confined to like a certain role, which is what you already said, but having to carry yourself a certain way to be considered a woman. Like they wanted to kind of get rid of that stigma, as you would say, and with our historical situation, like it was being more like open about their sexuality and being more free. They weren't just wearing blouses and skirts that went down to their ankles. Like they were starting to show off their skin a little bit more. Like you
As
said,
they should.
exactly right. Freedom to express yourself. So definitely exciting time for them. Very empowering. But does that make sense? Do we have any questions about that? I just wanted to go over 2 events. So definitely need to know women's rights movement. Definitely need to know baby boomers. All right. Now we're gonna move on to the exit ticket.